landed back, and we've got the same summary again, so it just gives us all our other sides, all our parts, and crew reports. And bottom right corner, I see again a few other milestones that we might have achieved. Now, of course, these will only be once, so we've broken a speed record of 790 meters per second. That's pretty damn fast. And so on, it just gives us a few things. It's okay, we've achieved the goal of our contract, and it shows you what we received. Now, as you can see, our reputation is slowly starting to build. We've got quite a good bit of science this time, and we've got good money at this point in time. Right, so next thing is, let's go back to mission control and see if there's anything we want to do. Now, we could go through all these missions first, but you can, these are missions you can try on your own. What I will show you, for example, like I was mentioning to you about the observational surveys and whatnot, it will show you, for example, crew report in flight above this height at Kraken's greatness. Now you're probably saying, where the hell is Kraken's greatness? Right, so if you go back here and you go to your tracking station, right, so that'll give you, it'll just show you everything on the planet Kerbal. And you can circle around the planet and see what you can see and what's highlighted. And if you click on it or hover over it, it'll give you the names of the different sites. So in this case, there we go. That would be Kraken's greatness. So that's our starting point here. That's the Kerbal Space Center. And Kraken's greatness would be off to the west of that. So over at this area. So that is where it would expect you to complete that mission. So you'd have to build. You could try it with a rocket and try and fly over there. I wouldn't recommend it because it's just your vehicles don't have the parts to be able to do that at the beginning. So these kind of missions are meant for planes or space planes. So you'd go into the plane hangar and build planes from there. Yet also for that you'd need the parts. So we aren't actually quite there yet. Let's say, for example, you have spaceships that are hovering, in orbit of Kerbal. You'd be able to find them here. They'd be under tracked objects, so you'd find any vehicles that you've got in space listed here. You'd click on them, and it would show you their location in the galaxy, as you can see here, which is pretty cool. That's all the planets that are available to us in the game. But tracked objects at one stage, when you've got things at a higher level, will also track asteroids. So you'll be able to see the asteroids that are flying around and that will be entering, let's say, Kerbal's orbit and stuff like that you can then also land on. But that's way later on in the game. First things first, let's go back, leave the facility. What we'll want to be trying doing next as the mission. So again, as I said, you can do the surveys if you want. You can do these special ones if you need more cash, where you get a few extra points for it, where you have to use parachutes or whatnot, or certain engines, and meet criteria of testing. So in an altitude of 50,000 to 55,000, a speed of that, flying and all that, so you'd have to use it during those conditions. Good for the extra bit of cash if you really feel you need it. At the moment, I don't think we do. And they're very specific, so between 50,000 and 55. As you can remember earlier, with the second vehicle part that we used, I mean, our speeds between 360 and 490, that's a split second, and the height as well, so you have to, you're nitpicking to get that to work, so it's questionable if these things are worth it. The next mission I'm going to be doing is orbiting Kerbal, okay, because that's a crucial thing to understand in this game. So I'm going to select that. That'll give us a completion amount of 48,000. Right, I'll accept this contract, go into active. That's now my only active contract, and as you can see, it doesn't expire, so I can take as long as I like at this. If I go into the archives, you can see what we've already completed. If there was any failures in here, you would see it under failed as well, if you have it connected at all. But let's hope we don't have any. Oh yeah, when it comes to cancelled, in the available contracts, if I click on one, you can always decline a contract. That'll give you declining points. So rather than clicking on something and declining it, just leave it in there. It'll run out after 5 days and that'll be gone anyway. Don't decline a contract because it'll just damage your reputation. Let it run out and it does nothing. Or yeah, failure would be if you didn't manage to do it in the duration that you had for this. Like with this contract, doing this this observational survey, I'd have 5 years to do it, almost 6 years actually. But I'm not going to take it just because it's going to end up taking up one of my max contracts. Now you can upgrade this stuff all at a later date, but we don't need that for now, so I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so this is where things might get a little trickier. Orbiting. We're going to need a few extra bits and bobs, so we'll be using our research and development for this, and we'll be unlocking a few more things. What we'll definitely be needing is better rockets. I know we've not used the fuel rockets yet, and I'll show you that shortly. But I'm going to upgrade anyway and get just a bit bigger fuel tanks, better solid fuel boosters, and yeah, liquid fuel engines as well. So I'm going to research that. Stability. What stability gives me here? It'll give me bigger fins or bigger winglets, which is good. Aerodynamic nose cones, so that yeah, because like the boosters, let's say if I have my boosters instead of having just one rocket, I can have side boosters. So I want aerodynamic nose cones on that, so it's just not a flat surface that's being attacked by the wind when I'm launching. So I'll definitely get in that as well. Research that's 18 points it needs, which leaves me with 26. All right, survivability gives me heat shields. Heat shields I need for re-entering the atmosphere at a higher speed. So like with our first flight that we did there, where we reached space, we got to 100,000 meters. So when we've re-entered re-entered the atmosphere, our speed hasn't been too high, so the heat tolerance of the pod itself was okay, so it wasn't burning up. However, if I come in at higher speed, it's going to start burning the hell out of the vehicle, right? So I want to make sure that I have a heat shield at the bottom to absorb all of that heat, right? Because you're going to notice the higher you go or the faster you come in, the more heat it's going to need to absorb. So you're going to need your heat shields. There's going to be other sciencey parts like this, the barometer, so that'll measure your pressure. So that's interesting, like when you're in space, zero pressure, for example, and so depending on where you are. Radiator panel, that would be to dissipate heat into space, so if you've got any objects or any engines or something that's creating a lot of heat, that'll just get rid of that heat. Landing struts, again, that'll be for landing certain things, like if you're landing on the moon or something like that. So it's a bit more advanced than what we need, but we might as well unlock these things because there's things on it we might use. Service bay, any sciencey stuff that you've got, for example, or batteries at one stage or whatnot, you can have that in there rather than having it on the exterior of the ship. You know, like how the way we have the mystery goo on the outside, if you have a service bay, you can have it inside there. Rather than having the exterior of the ship. Your radial parachutes, they're very good because let's say you've got some kind of vehicle that doesn't necessarily have the cone-shaped pod on the top, or your ship is that heavy that you need more than one parachute, more than the parachute on top. You could have parachutes on the side as well. So you could have, let's say, 3 parachutes rather than just the one on the top if you need more area of attack for landing. And then you've got your drogue chutes. drogue chutes are smaller chutes that aren't meant to land your vehicle safely. They are meant more to slow your vehicle down. So let's say you're trying to slow your vehicle down up higher when you're above the Mach 1 limitation, or you're above Mach 1, you're just trying to slow your vehicle. Your drogue chutes will do that. Drogue chutes are smaller and will be able to be deployed at a higher speed. A bit more advanced, but I'm going to be unlocking it right now anyway because we will be needing it. So just to explain that. And again, if we keep going up higher up the tech tree, you just unlock more and more and more stuff. When it comes to planes, that's why I was saying like all the observational surveys and stuff, you want all these plane parts first, so the aviation parts. But that costs 45 science points, so it's a long way away. That's why I'm not even. That's why I was saying don't worry about the observational parts first, because there's a lot to do before you get enough skill points to do that. So for now, I'm just going to do survivability, mainly because we want the heat shields. Right, research done. That leaves us 11 points, and we'll just leave them sitting for now. As you can see, it's unlocking so many different things. You see here, extra batteries, more sciencey parts, bigger radiators, better antennas, and so on. Or even, drones. Rather than sending up pilots, you'll be able to send up, just pure drones. Okay. Enter assembly vehicle. Vehicle assembly area. Right. So again, I'm happy with the top part of the ship. I'll leave that as is. I'll just get rid of the bottom part. As you see, I also left the decoupler, and that stuff should stay as it is. Don't know why that message box keeps popping up. Right. So this rocket is going to be a multi-stage rocket. It's going to have to be able to do an orbit, because we're not just flying up now. We're flying and we're going to be turning. So we have to control the rocket completely different to what we've previously been doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few fuel tanks. Now these fuel tanks can be stacked. So if I, for example, now use an engine, connected there. So this engine is going to be connected to these two fuel tanks. So I could either have it, for example, just like that, and this engine will use whatever the fuel's in this. But if I stack it, it does literally have double the amount. Okay, the only thing you have to take in consideration, of course, the ship is now heavier, so even though it's double the amount of fuel, doesn't mean it's going to take you double the distance, because you're carrying more weight. In weight, if it was in weightless, it would be different, but even then, you just take that into consideration. The more weight you're adding, the less thrust you're actually getting. Even if it's double the amount, you're not getting double the thrust. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm just going to add 3 fuel tanks. So this is going to be our stage in space. That's going to be our second stage. Now I've got to put some thought into this myself, because again, this is something that's trial and error. I've not got this off. I don't know this off by heart, so I'm trying to figure out myself what I'm going to need to be able to reach orbit, and what makes the most sense and which way I'm going to take. So actually, I'm going to stick to a rocket that size for now. I need something big enough to bring me into space, and then something that's strong enough to bring me into orbit without carrying too much dead weight. So if I leave it like that, and I will add another decoupler to the bottom of this. So So when I add this decoupler, you'll actually see it'll hide that part of the engine. Okay, so that's going to be, that's my final rocket stage. At the bottom of that, I'm actually going to add an additional amount of fuel tanks, possibly 3, maybe even 4 liquid fuel tanks, and add a T30 engine. Now let me just show you what I've done here so you can see the difference. So it's 2 different engines. They're actually both liquid fuel engines. One is the, let's see if I got the right engine. So one's the T45 and the other one's a T30. Difference between these 2 engines, so the T45 has a swivel at the bottom, meaning if I get my pilot to turn right, this engine will turn right as well, so that the whole boost of the engine will start turning it. The engine force will turn the whole ship as well. Well, for example, the T30 is a bigger engine, but it only faces in one direction. If I want to be able to turn this thing, I need fins. Okay, so this thing has no swivel on it. Well, the smaller engine that I have here does have a swivel on it. What does that mean to us? Now, in space, if I had this thing connected, and I press left, right, up, down, yaw, whatever, it wouldn't make a difference. It would do nothing. The only thing that this will move with is, in our case at the moment, is with fins. The fins, the aerodynamic fins can turn it. Once we're in space, aerodynamic fins don't apply. Okay? So I can use this thing on the Earth because I'm going to be connecting fins to it, aerodynamic fins, these winglets, because these can turn, so that these have a turn control on them. So if I turn left, right, up, down, these fins actually go up, down, left, right, or turn equivalently. So I'll be using the aerodynamic forces while the engine stays in one direction, while the other engine, as I mentioned, will turn. So I can actually turn with that in space. Well, with this one I can't. Once these winglets are over 70,000 meters, they're useless. I just throw them away. Let's just place them like that. Okay. Now, so one thing I want to add to this is some solid boosters. Hope I'm not over complicating it to start with, but this is where things get tricky. I could start off with this one, see how far it gets me. Actually, do you know what? I will, just so you can see. Right. Okay. So the way the rocket is built for now, I'm fairly happy. I do not believe this will take me to orbit, but just so you can see how this thing can be controlled. Okay, so I just want to check my stages. So first stage, stage 4 in this case, is the bottom engine. Yep, that's exactly what I want. Stage 3 is decoupling. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Stage 2, now I could connect those two if I wanted to. If I wanted that stage to break off and this stage to go at the same time, I could do so. Right, so they do it at the same time. So once that decouples, that engine will start. However, I want more control of that, so I'm just going to leave it separate, just in case. Stage 1 is that decoupling, and then the parachute. Yeah, that's about right. Alright, this is our first possible orbiter, so I'm just going to call it the Orbitor. Orbitor 1. Let's just go for that. Orbitor 1. There we go. Now, I don't expect this to work, but just bear with me. Alright, let's go for... I think I also need utilities. I don't think I need any additional parachutes because, again, I'm going to be popping everything off except for the top bit. Anything else that I could do? Sciencey bits. I could add a barometer. Why the hell not? I just want the one though. Let's add that there. Again, I think the barometer, these smaller things have such little mass that it will not affect, won't necessarily affect the trajectory of the rocket. Okay, if I notice it would, I'd probably see while looking at the nav ball that it'd be turning off in a weird direction. But I'm hoping that won't be the case. Communication, might as well put an antenna on it this time. Again, the antenna also does not have any or very low mass, so it should not affect anything. Do you know what? Okay, I've got a heat shield available, so let me take this whole bottom part of the rocket off. So as you can see here, when I'm marking something towards the root, the whole thing highlights. So when I'm clicking on something, it'll take off from that part. If I select the root part, which is my pod because it's the first part I placed, when I take that and move it, it'll move the whole thing. Well, if I only take a piece that's connected directly to the root, it'll only select that bit. So if I select from here, it'll go there all the way up to where it is. If my root piece was in the middle, for example, and I selected it to there, it would only go to there. Or if if the root part was there, it would just select it differently. Just to know that, yeah, the root part is where everything's connected to, and that's how you can remove parts. So I'm going to just take this off for now and add my heat shield. As you can see, there's two different sizes. That would be, as you can see, it's a very tiny one. That's not meant for this pod. That's meant for something smaller. Or if for some reason I wanted to, like I can flip any part in any direction. If I wanted to, I could have this heat shield up here. If I had some kind of purpose to have a heat shield there, but I don't. But yeah, you can flip any part that you want in any direction, up, down, left, right, side to side, whatever's needed. But for now, let me get my 1.25 meter heat shield, put it on the bottom there, and then add a decoupler to that. And there we go. Right. Orbiter 1 is ready for launch. Okay, before I launch, I can double check, am I happy with all my settings? Do I have everything done? Yes, I am. Now, because now I'm using a liquid fuel rather than a solid fuel booster, my throttle comes into play. Okay, so you have to make sure that you have your throttle to the setting you want. I'm just going to put it on full, all the way up to the top. Because yeah, I can adjust it later on if I feel I need to, but for the moment I'm going to put it all the way to the top. Turn on my SAS, stabilization control, and once I'm ready, I think I can go for takeoff. Oh, before I do, I can go into map mode so I can see from the from the globe as to where my position is. Okay. Once we take off and I go back into this map mode, you will see a line and it will show you my trajectory. Okay, so if I go up straight, you'll just see a line going up and a line going back down. So it will be in a slight curve because once you leave Earth and come back down, you're not going to land in the same area again because the Earth is rotating underneath you once you leave the atmosphere. So this is going to be important when it comes to orbiting. Once I fly up, I'll be starting to turn east, and rather than my my trajectory going up and then down again, it's going to go up and then slowly I'll start turning right and it'll start going towards this direction. You'll see an arc, like it'll go. Let's say it'll go from here to about here again. And the more speed I get, the higher or the bigger the arc is going to get, and the closer it's I'm just going to start going out and end up with an arc until I reach a speed of, I think it's 2,400 meters per second. Or that's the minimum I need, yeah, that I'm going to need to be able to have an orbit around the entire planet. Probably not going to reach it with this vehicle, but just so you can see what I'm talking about. Alright, everything's ready, SAS is on, I'm happy with my stages, here we go. And off we go. Okay, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's 0 point of me reaching above 350 meters per second before I reach 10,000 meters. Now the speed I'm going is pretty fast. I'm going to toggle my throttle slightly, so I'm going to reach that speed way too quickly. I don't want to do that. I'm starting to slightly pull my ship off to the right. Okay, as you can see, I'm going to reach that speed. Now I can go full throttle again. Because now it shouldn't be an issue. Fuel's almost about run out. Get rid of that engine. This one hasn't started yet. Let's quickly go into the map, have a look. And there you go. You can see my trajectory on the map. Okay. I'm going to start slowly turning my ship to the right, off to the east, where I'm trying to go, and start the next engine. Now, if I go into map mode, you can see the arc is changing. Okay, that's me reach my max speed. That's me reach up the fuel. That's as far and as high as I'm going to go. Now, for me to be able to stay in an orbit, as we know, space is 70,000 meters high. Okay? So my highest arc is actually not showing anything because that's something I have to unlock. I forgot the game does that. I have to unlock something that I can look at this and it usually give me the height. So I can see that arc and know where the top of that arc is going to be. But with the first ship that I've done, so if I would have kept going up straight, I would have probably reached a height of, who knows, 250,000 meters. But I would have come straight down again like a lawn dart and hit the ground. So to get the altitude, I point upwards. To get the distance around the orbit, I have to go horizontally. Now this is something that is without doubt massive bit of trial and error. But I know for now, definitely, regardless of what I had done better, I wasn't going to make it. I just did not have the energy. As you can see, it's a long, long way to go, energy-wise, for me to be able to reach the altitude required and the velocity required for orbit. Still pretty though. And if you think about it, we started all the way back there. Oh, there you can see the bit that I've jettisoned off is trailing. But we started all the way over there. That's quite the distance around the planet already, considering we've only been flying for 4 minutes now. So that's pretty cool. Now if you go back to the map, we can see we've pretty much reached the top of our arc, which is at 96,000 meters. Not as high as our previous flight, our first our highest flight. However, the distance wise, so much further. And now we can see we're starting to come down again. So according to this arc, we should land somewhere over here. That would be under the circumstances of there being no atmosphere. The atmosphere will slow us down, so this arc will shrink towards where we're actually going to land, so we might land somewhere here instead of over here. It'll depend. Now, we can set it out and see what happens. One thing I will want to be doing is turning my ship around in such a way that the heat shield is hitting the atmosphere first. I don't want to be pointed there like a dart. I want to hit it. I want the biggest area of attack to hit the atmosphere. Now on your nav ball, you're going to notice a few different symbols. The main ones that you want to know for now is this one here. So the yellow one and the other yellow one, which is that one. This one is pointing at directly at the area you're heading. Okay, so as you can see, which makes sense, if I face this way as the nav ball is pointing, my nose is pointing directly where I'm headed. Well, the other one on the opposite side is the opposite way around. So my nose is now facing away. So it's the ass of the ship that's now facing this side. So you want to know that for re-entry, for example, you want to have this one. That's the point you're pointing away. That's where you can be sure that your nose is facing away and you've got the biggest area of attack to re-enter. And you can just keep readjusting to make sure. And you can see, like, if you look at the movement of the ship, it makes sense. This part on the nav ball is indeed the nose facing furthest away from the re-entry point. You can see the area of attack is now slowing me down quite nicely. And that's why you want the heat shield. That heat shield protects me from all that extra heat, because at certain speeds the crew pod will not take that in the slightest. You can even see the heat bouncing off my science, my mystery goo holders. Yeah, it's slowed down at such a point. See over there, it says a symbol, 7 point something distance away, 8 kilometers away. That was my fuel booster that I let go. That's actually taken it's reached such a high speed that it's 10 kilometers away from us at this point. That's because it doesn't have the area of attack that we do to slow the ship down. At this point, if I wanted to, we have slow enough speeds on the parachute, if I decided to do so. And I would land safely. Now you see the area that's left for me to land. It's getting smaller and smaller because there's no more energy left in this except for landing. Okay, so one thing I know for a fact is this mission failed, or not really a failure. Our pilots are going to survive. They're going to land in the water. They will be collected, so all's good. What we do know though is when it comes to orbiting, we didn't quite reach our orbit. Okay, so again, it's trial and error. So what we would do is add more thrust, so maybe more rockets, maybe add some extra solids, fuel boosters, for example, whatever. Just try and get enough speed up so that we can, or add enough engines and stuff so that we've got enough power to be able to reach the orbit. So what I'll do is I'll revert flight and I'll go back to the vehicle assembly. And as I mentioned earlier, we're now back to where we were a few minutes ago where we'd started this off, so we've lost no experience, cost us nothing, and we can just build from here. So in this case, for example, I'd be able to, if I thought, okay, I need, what was missing in this was way more thrusts, for example. I could just, I've got a nice piece here, which is just a modular segment. I can just add here, for example, I could say I'd add 2 of these and just go crazy and add a booster on each side like that. Who knows, maybe that'd be enough thrust, maybe that'll get me to space. But that's all I'm going to show for now. I'll show you more in the next one. Hope you learned something.